Hannah stepped out of the restaurant, clutching Julia gently against her chest. The baby's blanket shifted slightly, and without realizing it, the business card Dominic had given her slipped out and landed unnoticed on the damp ground near the door. She didn't feel it fall. Her only focus was keeping her daughter warm and dry. The rain had stopped, and sunlight began to break through the clouds. The streets glistened with fresh puddles, and the usual Lagos noise returned. Honking cars, distant shouting, and footsteps hurrying past. Hannah walked quietly, her thoughts heavy but her heart holding on to something new: hope. She boarded a bus, spending a small portion of the money Dominic had given her, and returned to the same corner where their paths had first crossed. The shop nearby was still closed, but the shade in front of it was dry. She sat on the wooden bench, careful not to disturb Julia, who was now resting quietly against her chest. She kept checking the time by asking strangers as they passed. Her plan was clear: when 3 hours were up, she would borrow a phone, call Dominic, and wait. But she had no idea the card was no longer with her. Tucked into Julia's clothes just minutes ago, it was now lost somewhere behind her, lying wet and forgotten on the pavement. As time passed, she grew nervous. She reached into Julia's clothes, searching for the card. Her fingers found only the soft fabric of the pocket. She searched again, then again, now with urgency. Her heartbeat quickened. It wasn't there. Her eyes scanned the blanket, her lap, the bench, the ground. Nothing. The card was gone. She stood up, panicked, and checked the area around her. She turned the blanket inside out, searched her bag, even asked a passerby if they had seen a small card fall. But it was no use. That single lifeline to the only person who had shown her kindness was gone. She sat back down slowly, her shoulders trembling. Julia stirred in her arms, making a soft sound. Hannah rocked her gently, whispering, "It's okay. Mommy will fix this." But even she wasn't sure how. Dominic, on the other hand, had returned to his office. His suit was still damp, but he didn't care. The meeting had ended without him. His assistant explained that he had an emergency, and the foreign representatives were understanding, but he didn't feel relief. His mind wasn't on the meeting. It was still with the young woman in the rain. He looked at his phone repeatedly, waiting for her call. He sat by the window, eyes on the screen, watching the seconds tick by. 3 hours came and went. No call. He waited a little longer, thinking maybe she needed time. Maybe she didn't have a phone. But as the hours passed and the silence remained, a deep concern grew in his chest. He didn't know where to start looking. He had no address, no number to trace her. All he had was her name, Hannah, and the image of her standing in the rain, holding her child like she was holding on to life itself. Hannah, meanwhile, hadn't moved from the bench. The hours passed. The sun had started to set, and the streets grew busier. She didn't know what to do next. She had food now, and a little money. But she had no shelter, no job, and no way to reach the man who had offered her a new beginning. She looked down at Julia, who was now awake, sucking lightly on her fingers. Hannah smiled faintly, brushing a strand of wet hair from her baby's forehead. "We'll be okay," she whispered, though her voice shook. "We have to be." And somewhere across the city, Dominic looked out his office window, silently wondering if he would ever see them again. "I'll wait here until it's time to call. Then I'll pay someone to help me," Hannah whispered to herself. But now there was no card, no number, nothing at all. At exactly noon, Dominic rose from his seat in the boardroom. The foreign guests had just left. Everything had gone smoothly, On paper, it was a success. But he didn't smile. His mind wandered far from the polished glass table and business charts. He reached into his pocket, checked his phone again. No missed calls. He glanced at the time. 5 hours had passed. He sat down slowly, staring at the floor. "Why hasn't she called?" he muttered. "Did she forget?" His fingers rubbed against each other, uneasy. Maybe she never meant to call. Maybe she's just someone who lives off pity. But that thought didn't sit well with him. She didn't look like that. She looked afraid. She looked like someone who had been through too much. He remembered how she wept while eating. How she held her child so tightly, as if the world might take her away. He sighed, long and heavy. "I told her I'd take her somewhere safe. At least for the child. Why wouldn't she want that?" He looked down at the phone again. Still nothing. Eventually, he placed the phone back on the desk and tried to focus on work, but the unease remained. In another part of Lagos, Hannah sat quietly in the shade, unaware that the card was gone. Julia rested against her chest. It was already lunchtime. Dominic stepped into his black SUV and paused before giving instructions. He looked out the window, lost in thought. Then he turned to his driver. "Take me to the restaurant we stopped at this morning. The one where I took the woman and her baby." The driver nodded and started the engine. As they drove through the city, Dominic's eyes scanned the sidewalks. He hoped, just maybe, she might still be nearby. The thought that something could have happened to her began to grow heavier in his chest. They arrived. Dominic stepped out quickly, his eyes searching every corner. No sign of her. No sign of the baby. He approached the restaurant entrance slowly. Just as he reached the door, something on the wet floor caught his eye. He bent down. There it was, the card. The one he had given her. It was soaked, the edges worn soft from rain. But the writing was still legible. He picked it up and stared at it, heart sinking. "Did she throw this away?" he whispered. "Or did it fall without her knowing?" He looked around again, but there was no one. He walked in and sat at the same table they had used earlier. A waitress approached. "Good afternoon, sir. What would you like today?" Without a smile, he replied, "Just rice and chicken." The waitress left, and Dominic leaned back, placing the wet card on the table. He couldn't stop looking at it. Two thoughts fought in his mind. One said, "She left. She never meant to call." The other said, "She lost it, and maybe she's still waiting." He didn't know which one was true, but his thoughts kept drifting back to that baby. What might the child be going through now? Far away, Hannah was still sitting quietly. Julia was sleeping in her arms, her cheeks warm. Hannah looked down, tired. Her eyes were red. It was time. She reached into Julia's clothes, searching for the card, but her fingers stopped. Her heart sank. It was gone. She searched again, this time with urgency. She checked Julia's blanket, her own wrapper. Nothing. She stood up and looked around the ground. Still nothing. Her eyes welled with tears. "Oh no! No, no, no!" she cried softly, her voice breaking. She sank back onto the bench, hugging Julia tighter. "This can't be happening." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "God sent someone to help us. Someone good. And now I've lost the only way to reach him." She wiped her face, but the tears kept falling. Dominic. His name echoed in her heart. He had been kind. He gave her food, gave her money, offered safety. And now, nothing. No way to reach him. I'm sorry, baby. I lost it. I lost our only chance, she whispered, kissing Julia's forehead. Her voice trembled. Then, suddenly, a thought crossed her mind. Maybe it had fallen in the bus. Or maybe at the restaurant. Yes, the restaurant. She remembered the street, the table, everything. She stood up quickly, heart racing with new hope. Maybe the card is still there. Maybe someone kept it. She wrapped Julia securely and began walking fast. Her body was weak, her legs tired, but her heart pushed forward. She found a yellow bus going in that direction. Quietly, she climbed in and sat at the edge. She didn't speak. Her eyes stayed fixed on the road. Every stop made her heart beat faster. Finally, the bus reached the stop near the restaurant. She got down quickly, scanning her surroundings. Would the card still be there? Dominic, meanwhile, had just finished eating. He stared at the wet card one last time, cleaned it gently with a tissue, then sighed and rose to leave. His driver opened the car door. "Back to the office," he said, stepping in. As the car pulled away, Hannah arrived, just a few steps too late. She didn't see the man in the back seat. He didn't see her through the dark-tinted window. Their timing missed by seconds. She entered the restaurant slowly, holding Julia to her chest. She looked around. Everything was the same, but the card was gone. She hurried to the table. It was clean. She bent down, searched under it. Nothing. "Excuse me, please," she said to a waitress, her voice shaking. "Did anyone find a small card here?" The waitress looked at her, shook her head. "No, madam. We cleaned the place." "Nothing like that." Hannah's heart sank. She walked outside, tears falling again. Julia had started crying too. Hannah rocked her gently, trying to stay calm, but her chest was tight with pain. She had been so close. That night, Hannah sat on the floor of the same unfinished building. It was dark. No windows, just bare walls and wind. She placed some old fabric on the ground and laid Julia down gently. The baby slept, hand resting on her mother's arm. Hannah sat beside her, staring at the open ceiling. Her lips moved in a whisper. "God, I don't want my child to grow up like this. Please, help us." She thought of Dominic again. His face, his voice, the warmth in his eyes. Then she thought of the card, and how she lost it. Her hands pressed against her chest. "Maybe I'll never see him again," she whispered. But before sleep could take her, she made a decision. Quiet but firm. "I'll go back. I'll stand at the same place where he found me. Maybe, just maybe, he'll pass that way again." She didn't sleep much. The wind bit her skin. Mosquitoes stung. Julia cried in the night. But she stayed strong. By morning, she was up early. She cleaned Julia with water from a small bowl, dressed her neatly, and combed her hair with her fingers. She smiled faintly. "We'll be okay, I promise." She walked down the road, not to beg, but to wait. At the same corner. The same place. Watching. Hoping. Would he pass again? She didn't know. But she was ready to wait as long as it took. Meanwhile, at Dominic's mansion, the air was filled with joy. Today was special. His younger brother, Salem, was returning home after 17 years away in Atlanta. Dominic didn't go to the office. He stayed home, making sure everything was perfect. He gave the driver instructions. Go to the airport. My brother lands this morning. Don't be late. Yes, sir, the driver said and left quickly. Dominic moved through the house with a lightness in his step. In the kitchen, he spoke with the chef. Fried rice, jollof, grilled chicken, goat meat, and don't forget pounded yam. Salem loves that. The chef nodded. Everything will be ready, sir. Dominic called his 3 closest friends. Salem is arriving today. Come celebrate with us. They agreed. Music played softly through the compound. Dominic stood at the balcony, smiling, feeling peace. This is a good day, he whispered. But far across the city, Hannah was still at that corner, waiting. Julia tied to her back, her eyes tired but her spirit unshaken. She watched every black SUV that passed. But today, Dominic's driver had taken the red one. She didn't know that the man she prayed to meet again would not come out today. Not even close. God, please don't forget me, she said quietly. At the airport, Dominic's driver stood near the pickup zone holding a sign that read, Salem. Soon, a tall man with a warm smile appeared, pushing a trolley full of luggage. He spotted the sign and walked over. You must be Dominic's driver. Yes, sir, the man replied, taking the trolley. As they drove through the city, Salem rolled down the window, taking in the view. Wow, this place has changed. The driver smiled. Yes, sir. A lot has changed since you left. But as the car moved deeper into the city, it began to slow down. Vehicles were packed everywhere. Trucks, buses, tricycles, and bikes filled the road, their horns blaring from every direction. The driver sighed. Ah, this traffic again. Salem chuckled and leaned back. How do you people survive this madness? The driver smiled. We just manage, sir. This is Lagos, the most crowded city in Africa. They both laughed. But just then, the driver's eyes caught something ahead. His smile faded. Standing by the side of the road was a young woman with a baby tied to her back. She looked exhausted. It was her, the same woman Dominic had helped yesterday. The same woman he took to eat. The one who fed her baby before herself. The same woman Dominic returned to find later, but never saw again. The driver's grip on the steering wheel tightened. Salem noticed the sudden change in his expression. Something wrong? He asked. The driver quickly shook his head. No, sir. Just this traffic. He wasn't sure what to do. Should he stop? Should he call Dominic? But he hesitated, uncertain, so he kept driving, even as his eyes kept checking the rearview mirror. Inside, his heart was uneasy. That woman mattered. About 19 minutes later, the black SUV turned into Dominic's grand compound. As soon as it stopped, Salem stepped out, taking in the sight. The house was beautiful. Flowers lined the gate, and the compound was spotless. Just then, the front door swung open and Dominic appeared, smiling brightly. Salem, he called out. Brother. Salem replied, laughing as they rushed into a warm embrace. You look good, Dominic said, gripping his brother's shoulder. And you look even richer, Salem teased. They laughed together, and soon Dominic's close friends came out to join the moment. Handshakes, warm greetings, drinks, and laughter filled the air. But one man didn't share in the joy, the driver. He stood quietly beside the SUV, glancing at Dominic every few moments, worry etched on his face. He needed to talk. He had to talk. before it was too late and the woman disappeared again. As everyone moved inside the house, the driver followed silently, waiting near the door. Soon, Dominic walked toward the kitchen to check on the food. The chef was slicing meat and frying with focused speed. The driver followed. "Excuse me, sir," he said, his voice low. Dominic turned. "Yes? What is it?" The driver took a breath. "Sir, I saw her." Dominic's expression shifted. "Who?" "The woman from yesterday. The one with the baby. She's standing at the same spot where you first saw her." Dominic went still. His eyes dropped, his thoughts racing. "The woman who threw away my card," he muttered. "Does she really want help?" He remembered the rain, how she had shielded her baby with her wrapper. He recalled her soft voice saying her baby hadn't eaten. Something stirred in him. Guilt, maybe, or hope. Maybe she hadn't thrown the card away. Maybe it truly was an accident. Maybe she was just scared. Dominic looked up. "Go back now. If she's still there, ask her why she didn't call. If her answer makes sense, if her face shows she's sincere, bring her here." "Yes, sir." The driver nodded and left quickly. Meanwhile, Hannah was still standing beside the road, looking worn. Julia was pressed against her chest, silent, her little head damp with sweat. The heat was growing unbearable. Hannah's eyes searched every passing car, hoping to catch a glimpse of Dominic's SUV. She looked at the sky, then down at Julia. "It's past 12, she whispered. If he was going to work like yesterday, he should have passed by now. Her heart began to sink. Maybe he didn't go to work today. Or maybe he took another route. She sighed heavily and kissed Julia's head. "Let's find some shade, my baby." Just as she turned to walk away, a voice called out behind her, "Madam!" She stopped and turned quickly. A red SUV had pulled up by the roadside. The window rolled down, and the man inside pointed at her. "Wait," he said. She looked closely. It was Dominic's driver. Her eyes widened, her heart jumped. She held Julia tighter as the driver stepped out of the car. Hannah took a small step forward. The moment their eyes met, tears welled up in hers. She didn't sob, but her eyes said everything. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "I'm sorry. I lost the card he gave me yesterday. I searched everywhere. I even went back to the restaurant, but it was gone." The driver looked at her, at the tiredness on her face, the sweat on her brow, and the way she held her baby as if protecting her whole world. She wasn't acting. She wasn't pretending. She looked like someone who had silently cried all night. He didn't need to ask anything else. "Please come with me," he said softly. Hannah nodded. He opened the back door, and she climbed in with Julia. As the car moved, she stared out the window, unsure of what waited at the end of this journey. But in her heart, she whispered, "Thank you, God. Thank you." The red SUV rolled into Dominic's compound and stopped at the carport. The driver came down first and gently opened the door for Hannah. She stepped out slowly, still holding Julia close, her heart pounding. She looked up at the beautiful house. It felt unreal. The driver smiled gently. "Come with me." She followed. Inside, laughter echoed from the living room. Dominic was there with Salem and a few guests. But when his eyes met Hannah's, his smile faded. He stood slowly. Hannah moved quickly toward him, still holding Julia, and dropped to her knees. But Dominic rushed forward and held her arms. "Please don't," he said quietly. She stood up, shaking. The room fell silent. All eyes were on them, but no one spoke. Dominic didn't explain. He simply turned to her and said, "Come with me." He led her down the hallway and opened one of the guest room doors. It was clean and fresh. "Please," he said gently, "take a proper bath for you and your baby. Rest here." Hannah nodded slowly, still unsure if this was real. Dominic left and went straight to the kitchen. "There's a woman in the guest room," he told the chef firmly. "Make sure she eats well. Don't delay." "Yes, sir." Later that evening, after the guests had left, Dominic sat with Salem and Hannah in the living room. Hannah looked refreshed, wearing clean clothes. Julia, now asleep, lay peacefully in her arms. Dominic looked at her. "You said you lost the card?" "Yes, sir," she replied. "I looked everywhere, even went back to the restaurant, but I couldn't find it." She hesitated, then added, "My phone. It got spoilt before I gave birth. I haven't had a phone since." Salem listened quietly. Dominic had already told him part of the story. Seeing her now, Salem felt something stir in his chest. He looked at the baby, then at Dominic. Dominic leaned forward. "I can't change the past," he said gently, "but I can help your future." Hannah looked at him, speechless. "I want you to think, any business you'd like to do, something you're good at or want to learn, tell me, and I'll set it up for you." Then he added, "You'll stay here for now, until we find you a place of your own." Tears rolled down her cheeks. She didn't try to stop them. She looked at Julia, then at Dominic. "Thank you," she whispered. Salem smiled slightly and looked at his brother. Dominic only nodded, but in his heart, he knew. He had just made a decision that would change this woman's life. A few days later, Dominic walked into the guest room with a smile. "Get ready," he said. "We're going out." "Out?" she asked, surprised. He nodded. "You and Julia need something important." Soon they were on the road. Dominic didn't say much. Hannah held Julia and stared quietly out the window, still in disbelief. They arrived at a large clothing store. Dominic led them inside. "Pick anything you like," he said. Hannah looked at him wide-eyed. "Sir, what do you mean?" "I mean it," he smiled. "You and Julia. You both deserve it." At first, she was hesitant, touching dresses and putting them back. But with Dominic's encouragement, she picked a few for herself and some beautiful baby clothes. The cashier packed everything, and Dominic paid. "Thank you, sir," she said with deep gratitude. "Thank you so much." But he wasn't done. Next, they went to a phone store. He bought her a durable phone, then took her to the telecom center and helped her retrieve her old number. Hannah held the phone like it was a treasure. "God bless you, sir," she said, eyes wet. "I don't even know what to say." Dominic just smiled. "You don't have to say anything." When they returned home, Salem was waiting. "Dominic," he said, "there's somewhere I'd like you to go with me, and I'd like Hannah to come too." Dominic looked at Hannah. She nodded, and they all entered the car. The drive was quiet. Hannah kept wondering what it could be. She looked down at Julia asleep in her arms and prayed. The car stopped in front of a tall apartment building. They stepped out. Dominic looked at Salem. "Where are we?" "Follow me," he said. They entered the building and stopped in front of a door. Salem turned to Hannah. "When I heard your story," he said softly, "it reminded me of our mother." Hannah listened quietly. She was a single mother too. She raised Dominic and me alone. I remember seeing her cry at night. But I couldn't help her. We were too young. Tears filled Hannah's eyes. She passed before we made any money. Before we could show her the love she deserved. That pain still lives in me. Salem reached into his pocket and pulled out a small key. This apartment, he said, is for you. Hannah dropped to her knees, crying loudly. Oh God! What did I do to deserve this kindness? Dominic stood still. He had planned to help her, but his brother had gone even further. He hugged Salem tightly. I'm proud of the man you've become, he said. I just wish Mom was here to see this. Salem smiled and turned back to Hannah. I've also arranged to open a supermarket for you, he said. Don't worry. We'll hire a manager. But you'll learn and take over with time. Hannah cried even more. Words failed her, but deep down she knew. Her life had changed forever. Weeks passed quietly. Her days no longer began in hunger or ended in fear. She now had a clean home, a stocked supermarket with her name on it, and customers who came every day. She was no longer standing by the roadside with her baby. One warm afternoon, she sat in her office, checking her books. Julia was asleep in a small crib beside her. Suddenly, her phone rang. A strange number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello, is this Hannah? Yes. Who's this? A pause. Then a calm but sad voice. I'm calling from a nearby country. My name is Evelyn. I'm Jacob's cousin. At the mention of Jacob, Hannah froze. Her eyes filled with tears. She hadn't heard his name in so long. I've been trying this number for over a year, Evelyn continued. But it was always off. I finally got through today. Hannah remained silent, listening. Jacob. He came into the country the same day he left you. There was an accident. A bad one. He never made it home. Hannah clutched her chest. He was in a coma for 4 months. He didn't wake up. He passed quietly. There was a long silence. I saw the messages you sent him, Evelyn said softly. I saw the love. He was serious about you. Hannah wiped her face. She still didn't know what to say. From the messages. I believe there's a child, Evelyn added. Is there? Yes, Hannah whispered. Her name is Julia. She's his daughter. Her voice cracked, but she didn't hide it anymore. Evelyn sighed. Jacob's mother is still alive. She's very old now. She cries every day, thinking her son left nothing behind. But now there's hope. Hannah took a deep breath and answered firmly. Don't worry. I'll make arrangements. Julia must meet her grandmother. I'll make it happen. The woman began to cry. Thank you, she whispered. After the call, Hannah sat in silence. Tears fell, not from sorrow but peace. The weight she'd carried for so long had finally lifted. Jacob hadn't abandoned her. He simply never had the chance to return. Now Julia would grow up knowing the truth. A few days later, Dominic and Salem visited the supermarket. They saw her smile, this time from a place deep within. Dominic placed his hand on her shoulder. You're strong, he said. And she was. Because even though life had tried to crush her, she stood again. Not with bitterness, but with hope. Because true wealth is not in money. It's in kindness, in lifting others, in showing up when someone has no strength left. Never judge anyone by their struggle. Every life holds a story, and your one act of kindness could become someone's turning point. So now, what did you learn from Hannah's journey? Was there a moment that touched your heart? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. A powerful new story is coming soon. It's emotional, inspiring, and full of unexpected twists. Please subscribe, turn on the notification bell, like this video, and share it with someone you care about. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.